This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, backed by popular demand, Michael Finch, a poet. And you've got to get his new collection of poetry called Finding Home. And he is also the president of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. And by the way, he is the godfather of the Glazov Gang. Michael, welcome back to the Glazov Gang.
Thank you for having me back, Jamie. It's great to be here.
Michael Finch, you have written The Absurdity of quote-unquote unity. Brilliant, profound article at the American Thinker recently. And wow, it really hit home. I wanted to bring you on and talk about it with you this evening. Before I ask you my questions, tell our audience what it was about and why you wrote it.
Well, during the entire campaign, Hillary's theme was stronger together. And I don't know if that bothered you or what kind of it struck with people. It bothered me, and I think anyone who's a liberty-loving American, the idea of stronger together is the collective. To me, it's a euphemism for collectivism. You know, we need to be united. And united in what way? To me, Hillary's trying to say united with what she is thinking in a collectivist leftist universe. So I think in that sense, unity can be very dangerous. Yes, we're the United States, but they're thinking of something unity very differently. To have strong centralized control and to have power in Washington, D.C., you need a people united behind her. And that started to bother me during the campaign. And then that's when I wrote the article afterwards, because I'm concerned of this false sense of unity.
Absolutely, Mike. And you know, this has always bothered me. It continues to bother me. Just these assumptions in our culture, which is, of course, molded by the left. And a lot of people don't see this, and you really hit at it. And now, even after the election, there was all this stuff, oh, we need to unite the country again, unity, unity. And you pointed out in the article, look, we just sent a signal to Washington to, quote unquote, back the hell off and leave us be. That's your quote. And that's what a lot of the American people said. Back off, leave us be. And in other words, let us celebrate our disunity to some degree.
Yeah, isn't it? It's interesting. The left and the Democrats preach this kind of diversity. Well, but it's a false diversity because they don't want diversity of ideas. So when they say unity, they want you thinking along. I mean, this is the left, and you understand the left better than anybody, Jamie. To be able to take the left and they want to mold your thinking. So they want to change the way you think. So they want to unite it. That's why when Hillary said you're not only deplorable, you're irredeemable, only someone on the left would make that kind of statement. Yeah. So people who think differently, you need to get united behind them in thought. That's incredibly dangerous, and that destroys liberty.
Absolutely, Mike. And in your article, you stress, let us be different. Now, look, you're a poet, you're an intellectual, very well-read man. And so let's go back to the Bible, the Tower of Babel. Mike, there's a reason why God, at that moment, created the different languages so the people couldn't communicate with each other, and he scattered them around the globe. There's a real deep meaning there somewhere that humans are trying to make themselves gods and to unite as one, and God creating lots of different languages and dispersing them. Yes, there is a message, of course, in the Judeo-Christian tradition and in Christianity about peace and love, but it doesn't necessarily mean unity.
Well, think how brilliant the founders were in understanding what you just explained, Jamie. You had 13 colonies, a couple million people. We're not talking 320 million people with 50 states. We're talking 13 colonies. They knew that all the power had to be spread among all the people, right? So you had 13 states come together to try to form some kind of union, but all the power and all the authority was going to be dispersed into a federal system. You would have very, very little power in Washington, D.C. War-making authority, printing currency, treaties with foreign countries. Everything else was dispersed because they knew that everything for liberty has to be dispersed. You cannot be a unified power. Then you become the Roman Empire. They studied the Bible. They studied history. What Hillary and the left have been trying to do for really over a century is trying to unify that power into Washington, D.C. and have us all kind of follow the collective. You saw it in the Soviet Union, of course, in Germany. And they're emulating that model, and that's what we have to resist.
Well, Mike, absolutely. And when I hear these leftists, we have to be one, we have to unite, we have to unite. I just sit back and start getting images of Maoist unisex clothing, of the burqa, of, the Cultural Revolution, of the Khmer Rouge. And you pointed out in your article, we don't need a federal government squashing the rights of local communities and individuals. So when these leftists are moaning and whining about disunity, what they're really saying is we want to squash everything that makes America America, which includes local communities and individualism.
Which is why you federalize everything: healthcare, education, right? And think about what is the one unit in society, in our culture, that is the great resistor to centralized power. You could say the state, the community. Really, it's the family, and that's why the left tries to destroy the family, because the family is kind of the one bulwark against central authority. So again, when Hillary said things like "it takes a village," think about it. I mean, that sounds great. It takes a village. But it takes a village to what? To raise a family? It doesn't. It takes a mother and a father and a family to raise a family, not the village. But again, that's all part of that central impulse.
Absolutely, Mike. And I've observed this my whole life. Recently I was reading this one. I was in Canada reading this one lefty journal, and they're complaining in the leftist journal that there's still a few bubbles left in the city. And I'm just wondering, what does this mean, bubbles? And what it means is, there's still a few neighborhoods that aren't really part of that totalitarian collective. They want everybody the same. They want a dumbing down. They hate this idea of difference and individualism. And let me connect it to another point that you made. So glad you made this point in your article. All this whining during the election, about the election afterwards, oh, it was so nasty, it was so rude, and just even the assumption is absurd, and you pointed it out. Electoral politics have always been nasty, they've always been rude, we fight it out. And this is the beauty of America. This is the beauty of freedom. And they're making it sound like it's a bad thing, right? We need to return to maybe what things were like under Brezhnev, where nobody called each other names or argued, right?
Yeah, how did electoral politics go in the Soviet Union? You probably didn't have these kind of battles during a campaign. You didn't have a campaign. You had one party.
But you pointed out it's supposed to be nasty. It's supposed to be.
All the passions and everything have to be fought out then, not in the streets against each other. We shouldn't be shooting at each other. Let the passions out in a political arena, and then you settle it, and then you have 4 years later to settle the score, right? I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be nasty. It's supposed to be a fight. Unleash the passions in the proper way, and it was ridiculous. You read American history, we have this kind of naive view that it's always been everyone gets along. But again, what the left tries to do when they say everyone needs to get along, be united, in other words, get united behind them, get along with what they believe. That's what bipartisanship is to the left, and that's what we always have to fight against.
Mike, it's incredible, they're so upset at how rude and nasty the campaign was, and we just all need to be united. Meanwhile, Gigi Hadid mocking an immigrant's accent at the American Music Awards, right? When she imitated Melania, it's very interesting, or, the attempted imitation, but it's very interesting. It was the mockery of an immigrant's accent. And yet it's allowed because it's not the immigrant that the left will defend. On Conan O'Brien during the campaign, they had a little doll of Trump or whatever, and they threw him over a high-story building. In other words, a skit of killing Trump. So they really want unity and peace, and they're really upset about how rude everyone was during the election. And yet they make skits about killing Trump, and they mock Melania's accent. And there's another million examples we can bring up. They're the real haters, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you and I would not have gone to the streets and started blocking freeways if Hillary Clinton. We would have been incredibly depressed. You start kind of internalizing and say, how can we get this country back? But it's not through what they do. It's not through the methods they do, but that's what the left does. And one kind of cautionary note, look, the entire country is red. I mean, the part, we talk about, but there's a huge bubble in this country that resists this centralized power. but the left is still incredibly strong force. And that temptation of the left, which you of course you wrote about in United and Hate, is never going to stop. So the temptation to gather more power, even if we feel like we're in the majority, we've got the whole country. I would beware. I mean, I don't. You're a historian of the Soviet Union. During the revolution, I don't think the majority of the Russian people were behind the Bolshevik Revolution. It was a very small minority, but with a very powerful message. So we always have to be aware of this collectivist, unified. Let's be together. It's a very powerful impulse that we have to resist. Individualism is a very tough sell, but that is what America is all about, and we have to keep that individualistic spirit and always resist this kind of collective. Let's unite. Let's be together. Temptation. It's very powerful.
Right, and in your article at the American Thinker, where you talk about the absurdity of unity, is that America was never meant to be united in every means and manner. That was never the intention.
No, we were united when the British came and burned the White House, right? Which, started the War of 1812. We were united at Pearl Harbor. We were united at 9/11. Obviously, there are times when the American people, because we are united, this is the United States. There are times when we have to be united, true united. But for the other part, just let us be. Let us lead our lives. We have 320 million people in this huge country. We cannot be united, right? In every sense. Only in the rare senses, the important senses. And it comes to day-to-day life, we are not united. You do not live as someone in Maine or someone in Florida does. You don't think the same. You're going to educate your children somewhat different. All of that needs to be different. Everything you have to celebrate in that sense, celebrate. That's what diversity is.
Mike, a brilliant idea just came to me. In terms of the word united, one of the best books out there starts with that word.
United in Hate is the definitive book in understanding the left and Islam. There's no question, Jamie. And Christmas is coming up. I'm going to urge everyone, go to Amazon, order United in Hate.
This is why Mike Finch is constantly invited to the show. But on a serious note, let's end with this, Mike, and to actually seriously speak about a book, Finding Home, your collection of poetry. But your poems crystallize this argument here, because one of your poems, My Wisconsin, and a lot of your poetry, Mike, that harkens back to, in many ways, the Midwest and certain parts of America and Wisconsin and the nature and the communities. There's an America there that you love and you treasure, and your poetry, has a nostalgia for that America in one way or another. And if Hillary Clinton and the left got their way to unite the country and make everything, let's say, California, everything you write about, they would stamp out, correct?
You destroy the individual, you destroy communities, you destroy the states. They've been trying to do that. They've been very successful in this endeavor of destroying individuality. But you're right. I mean, what does Wisconsin mean? You have this unified kind of empire. Hillary's united, stronger together. There is no Wisconsin. There is no Louisiana or California. You're right. We're all California. So you're right. That's the temp. We always have to fight that. But through the poetry, it's a sense of we all come from an area. We all come from a region. You come from a particular region, and you know that region. And those regions mean something, and they have to always mean something. That state, that community, that town.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to end with this. This is why, we understand each other, and a lot of what you write resonates with me and hits home, because my family's from the Soviet Union. And when I hear these leftists, and even in our culture, we have to be one, we have to unite, there's so much disunity. No. I want there to be a dissident. And my thought of a wonderful society is when there are dissidents and sheep straying from the flock, and they are allowed to express their ideas. Let's finish with that. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, you're right. I mean, be disunited, be the dissident, because we're all Americans. We will come together when we have to. It's not like we can't, it was disunited before Pearl Harbor. It came together on December 7th. We'll always come together when we have to. In the meantime, leave us alone. Let us lead our lives in our towns, in our families, in our states. All right. Do not try to control our lives. Don't tell us how to raise our children. Don't tell us which bathrooms we can use. Don't tell us which kind of healthcare plan we have to buy. Leave us alone. Right. We're Americans, and we'll never forget that we are united in that spirit. But we cannot forget the individual.
Michael, thank you so much, and thank you for writing The Absurdity of quote-unquote Unity at the American Thinker. Everybody go read that article, The Absurdity of Unity by Michael Finch at the American Thinker. Mike, thanks for being back on the Glazov Gang.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. And everybody remember, Michael Finch is the president of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Look up the David Horowitz Freedom Center in Google if you don't know about it, and get involved. It's on the front lines of fighting for freedom. And also go to Amazon.com and look up Finding Home by Michael Finch, a collection of his beautiful and moving poetry. Thank you for joining us this evening. Remember, we are a fan-generated program. Go to JamieGlazov.com to support the show. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang, make sure you are right now. We'll see you next week. Good night.